Today we're going to talk about designs that you are doing in a split hooping, in the sense that we're doing one design on one piece of fabric in multiple hoopings. So our bibs are an example of one of those. Now it does have, for the 6x10 hoop, it has your traditional hoops that are just one hooping and you just carry on and do your whole fabric in one hoop. But for smaller hoop sizes, like the 5x7, and we also have a 6x10 split so that you can make a larger bib using smaller hoops. So this is the 6x10 in a singular hoop, and this is it done in two hoops. So what you're going to be doing is taking one large piece of fabric and embroidering on the top, and then relining it up to embroider on the bottom. So it seems a bit intimidating, but it's really not difficult once you give it a go. You can find this chart in the tutorial and it will give the finished sizes of all of your hoop options. All the neck holes are approximately the same, so you can just take the finished size of the bib that you are stitching and add some seam allowance to the sizes. I prefer 2 inches on either side, but you can do what makes you comfortable. And you're going to cut a front and a back for each of those pieces. Here is a sample photo that we have of an 8-month-old baby wearing the 7x12 bib, as well as a reborn doll wearing the 5x7 bib. As you can see, there's lots of room there and you get good coverage on either. Obviously, you get a bit more coverage with your larger size bib, but the 5x7 gives you a great size for a baby. So for the split hooping, you're going to go ahead and load your hoop A file. Sometimes there are limbs, so sometimes it's a 2A, but in this case there's no limb hooping, so it's just a hooping. And you're going to go ahead and stitch your step 1 onto stabilizer. And the major thing is you want to make sure that your fabric is large enough to do the whole bib. So we don't just want it cut off here where this step 1 placement is. We want a large seamless bib. So we're going to cut our fabric and lay it so that the excess is towards the front of the hoop or the bottom of this page here, so that we have enough fabric to stitch and continue. So you're going to lay both your fabrics right sides together over that placement with the excess towards the front of the hoop, and you're going to stitch the final outline for the neck portion. You'll notice that there are 2 what we call matching markers on either side. And what these will do is help you line up this piece of fabric with the next hooping. So that's a quick and easy hoop A. At this point, you are going to unhoop your fabric and rehoop a fresh piece of stabilizer. Once you've hooped your new stabilizer, you're going to stitch step 1 on the stabilizer, which is the matching markers that we're going to use our fabric that we stitch in hoop A, and we're going to take that fabric and we're going to place it on the hoop, and we're going to line up those matching markers as close as we can. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but you just want it in the same vicinity as the markers that are stitched on the stabilizer. So this markers from hoop A, you're going to match with the markers on stabilizer for hoop B. Then we have 2 double check lines, and what those double check lines do are stitch right on top of your final outline from the previous hoop. And that's just a way, you don't have to do these, but this is just a way to confirm that you've got these matching markers lined up properly and that your bib is going to match up on the bottom with the top. So if these don't match, if they're really far off, if they're just a little bit off, it's not going to make a big difference. But if they're like way over here, then you want to reposition. So gently unpick these stitches and try again with your lining up to ensure that you have your bib lined up properly. So once you've stitched your matching markers and then your double check lines, you're going to take your backing fabric from hoop A and flip it back so that we have exposed our front fabric and just are working on the one layer of fabric. So you're going to go ahead and tack that down. So we have that basted onto the stabilizer. And at that point, you're just going to continue on with the design, depending on what bib you're doing. In this case, we're doing the jellyfish. So the jellyfish stitches, a placement for the jellyfish, as well as placements for the ribbon or yarn tentacles. So you want to do the tentacles first, but we don't want to have the placement having to go over the tentacles and potentially getting caught. So we show you the placement in that step just to save yourself some hassle. Now the tentacles are stitched in multiple sections just to allow you to add and adjust as you go. So there are multiple sections, I believe 4, to tack those down. After you've gotten those tacked down, you're going to lay your fabric over the placement and we're going to stitch it down and then trim any excess around for the applique. Being very careful not to trim off our ribbons here. So you can lay some water soluble down before you add your fabric to sort of help you have a barrier between, or just take care not to cut off any of our tentacles. And then you just proceed as a normal applique where we do our satin stitch and all of our facial details. So at this point, you are going to be flipping your backing fabric back down over the bib. And we're going to just finish with our final outline, and it will leave an opening there so that you can turn your bib. So at this point, you're going to cut out your bib. We recommend that you cut little slits into any of these seam allowances, going perpendicular into your seam allowances to give that some leeway to turn. It'll give you a nice smoother turn, and you can do that along the bottom as well. So you can cut out using a 1/4 to 1/2 inch seam allowance and then turn your bib right side out. You can top stitch your bib if you have a sewing machine you like to use, or you can just simply close. I hope that takes some of the intimidation factor away from doing split hoopings. They really are not as difficult as they may appear, and so we hope that you'll give it a try with this jellyfish bib.